Hello, beautiful friends and fellow word lovers. Welcome back to Pocket of Poetry. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in September. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to be honest, September was probably the worst reading month I've had so far. It was honestly the month of DNFing books. Like, I feel like I'm starting to have a little bit of a problem with how much I DNF because I've started to become like a book sampler. Like, I will just like sample pieces of books to see if I like them or want to continue reading them. And I guess technically there's nothing wrong with that, but I always just feel less accomplished because I finished less books. But at the same time, I didn't want to finish those books, so I didn't. But I'm just going to mention a couple books really briefly that I did DNF. One of them was, I believe this was in September. Yeah, it was. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by, I can't remember the author's name right now, but I'll put a picture of it. That book, I had been seeing it going around a little bit, and I was intrigued because I was really in the mood for kind of like a depressing book. Honestly, like I was in the mood for something that was kind of a little bit more dark, but in kind of a shallow way, you know? I guess I was looking for something that made me feel how like The Secret History and The Goldfinch made me feel, and I thought that I might get that with this book, but it was not it for me. Didn't like it at all, started it, and I just was tired of the main character after about 20 pages, so I just stopped reading. At the beginning of this month, I went on a little vacation and then shortly afterwards became super sick and was confined to my house for a week. So during the vacation and the sickness, I really just needed to be entertained. I needed something to like read, and I was just kind of desperate for something to read. And so I started a couple of different books that I ended up, again, DNFing because they were just not what I wanted, or I just didn't care enough to see the story through to completion. So the first one was The Return by Nicholas Sparks. I thought, you know, I've heard Nicholas Sparks is a really good romance author. I thought it would be like a fun little read, lighthearted read. It was probably the most boring thing I've ever read in my entire life. Our main character was this guy in like his 30s who had been in a traumatic injury accident in, I think it was Afghanistan, as a soldier, and he was traumatized afterwards, and he ends up going back, and his grandfather passes away, so he goes to live in his grandfather's house, which he inherited, and it was the most boring book. Like, it was all in the mind of this main character, this 30-year-old dude, and I was so tired by the end of hearing every mundane detail of his life and his day and everything that he did and every thought that he had and every very stereotypical white 30-year-old dude filter through which he saw the world. And there was, of course, the love interest, who was this young, beautiful girl who happened to be a sheriff in the town he moved into. And of course, because she was young and beautiful, she didn't seem like the type of girl who would be a sheriff. She didn't seem like she really wanted that life for herself. And so she has this mystery about her, and he falls for her. The romance was pretty laughable, and the story itself was just insanely boring. And I'm actually surprised I read as far as I did. Like, there were certain elements of the story that kind of interested me, so I wanted to keep going. I think I made it a little over halfway maybe, and then I was just done. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was over it. So I stopped. And then the other book that I DNF'd this month, I wanted to mention them all just because, I don't know, I just wanted to let you guys know I did do more reading than just these books that I'm about to talk about. This book was actually pretty cute. It was called The Manic Pixie Dream Boy Improvement Project by Lenore Applehans. I just randomly found it on my Libby app, and it was this cute little story about a manic pixie dream boy who lives in Trope Town, and he, you know, all the tropes in Trope Town get working in novels for authors. Gonna get to be undeveloped characters in other people's stories. And so Riley is the main character. He's this manic pixie dream boy, and he has to go to group therapy because he was going off script in one of his stories, and he ends up meeting all these other manic pixie dream girls like him. He's the only boy. And they kind of like go in this group therapy, and there's this other girl in there that he has a crush on. And it was like this whole thing. And the concept of the story was really cute. And I read for a little while. I think I read maybe half of it. But again, DNF'd it. Mostly the reason why I DNF'd it was because I wasn't interested enough in the story to keep going. It just wasn't keeping my interest. It wasn't gripping me. It was an okay book. It was I don't know. It was cute at first, but I think the plot might have just been too slow moving. I just didn't care enough to push through it and get to the end. I didn't care enough about the ending. I didn't care enough about the characters, so I stopped reading it. Okay, now that we've gotten through everything that I DNF'd, let's get to the books that I actually read. So the first book that I completed in September was A Little Life by Hanya Yanigahara. I think I said her name right, maybe. If you know anything about this book, you know that it is heart-wrenchingly, devastatingly sad, and that you will cry, and that you will feel things, and that you will need to really not be in a bad mental place when you read this, because this book is, definitely probably one of the saddest, most heartbreaking books I've ever read. I saw it all over BookTube, Bookstagram, all of those places, and I had been wanting to read it for a while because I just saw that it had such good reviews and so many people loved it, but definitely wasn't ready. And here's the thing, this book has a ton of trigger warnings, so if you're not already aware of the trigger warnings of A Little Life, there are trigger warnings for sexual abuse of children and just in general, trigger warnings for domestic violence, very, very big one, domestic assault, and also self-harm, suicide, suicidal thoughts, depression, all of that. So this book deals with a ton of really, really, really heavy topics, so I can't stress enough, if you are in any way triggered by any of that, stay away. I waited a while to read it just because I knew it was going to be a tougher one to get through, and then I finally felt like I was ready for it, so I was like, I really want to read it, I'm in the mood for this specific type of reading experience. And this book is set in New York City, and it's set, we follow four main characters. We have Willem, Jude, JB, and Malcolm, and they are four best friends that meet in their freshman year of college when they're all roommates, and they stay together as friends throughout most of their lives. And it kind of follows these boys' lives from when they're freshmen in college to kind of much, much later in their life. So it spans a really, really long amount of time. And it talks about the four different boys and the ways that they go in their career, and the kind of the academic and career achievements and pursuits that they have. So it's a little bit of an academic vibe, a little bit of so they all have very different careers. One of them turns out to be an artist, one of them is an actor, one of them is an architect, and one of them is a lawyer. So they all have very different careers, but you follow kind of the professional world of all of these different fields as well. So I really liked that about the book, that it had that atmosphere to it. The characters, you guys, are 100% real people. You cannot convince me otherwise. These characters are incredibly well written and well developed, and you just feel like you know them. You feel like they are real human beings that could just pop off the page. Incredible, incredible writing, incredible story. You will be so freaking attached to these characters. You will hate them at times, you will love them at other times, especially Jude and Willem. They're kind of the main two characters, and specifically Jude. And a lot of the heavy, dark, traumatic stuff in this story comes from Jude and his backstory, because he had a very traumatic, very abusive, horrible childhood and background and life, basically up until the point where he meets his three friends, and they don't really know anything about his past, and he doesn't really ever talk about it. So throughout his whole story, you're kind of just watching him struggle with these demons and this darkness that's always with him, but he refuses to reach out and get help. He refuses to talk to anybody about it, and it's heartbreaking exploration of mental illness and trauma. If you feel like you're in a good place for it, I cannot recommend this book enough. I gave it a rating of 5 stars. I don't think that should be a surprise. It's definitely my kind of literature, although yes, it was hard to get through, and I cried a lot, and also had a fit of this is gonna sound dramatic. I had some pretty intense rage also during this book, specifically one part. I just got so angry. Oh, I've never been that angry at a character in a book, I don't think ever in my entire life. I was just ready to Anyway, so that's my review of A Little Life. It was incredible, beautiful, touched my soul to the core, and I definitely want to buy a copy of it. I got it from my library. I definitely want to buy a copy of it because I'll probably reread it one day. I loved it. It was so good. Okay. The next book that I completed in September was Ariana, The Making of a Queen by Rachel and Eunice. I did an entire video on this book, which is the reason why I read it, and I will link it up here for you. I just really wanted to do this video. I'm not going to get into what the book is about because I have an entire video on that, but I will say I rated this book 2.5 stars as an objective rating without any of the nostalgia goggles. I think this is a good story, but the execution of how the story was told and the character development, not so great, not as quality. So if I'm being completely objective, I have to give it the rating of 2.5 stars. Okay, next book that I completed was Untold Night and Day by Schwa, I think is how you say her name. I read this book at the recommendation of Emmy. That's literally her channel name is just Emmy. I think it's Emma. I think she goes by Emma, but her channel name is Emmy. And it's on, she's just a booktube channel. I'll link her channel down below. But I was watching a reading vlog of hers and she was reading this book. And the way that she talked about this book made me really want to read it. So I actually bought it on a whim. And I love this cover, by the way. I'm obsessed with the cover. I think it is so cool. But basically this story takes place over a night in Seoul, a hot, steamy summer night, and there's a lot of descriptions about how hot and sticky and sweaty it is. And the only way that you can really describe this book, and this is literal, in a very literal sense, is a fever dream, because I'm pretty sure by the end of the book you're meant to understand that the entire thing is a literal dream. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. The story is all over the place. There's no chronological linear timeline to it at all. It's confusing AF. It's just, it's very repetitive. There's a lot of phrases and things that are repeated over and over again. And like, here's the thing, I am not used to this kind of literature. Like, this was a step out of my comfort zone for me. It was something that I don't know. I don't feel like maybe I really fully understood this book because I didn't get a whole lot out of it, to be quite frank. Like, there were some passages in here that I thought were very beautiful and that I underlined, but beyond that, I just don't really understand what the point was. I'm sorry, I don't get it. I think it was literally just meant to be like subjective reality, and it was supposed to show you how life is like a dream. And like, there's this passage, actually, here we go. So on page 144, it says, they're talking about a dream. These two characters are talking about like a dream that one of the characters had. And they're talking about like what the dream means. And so one of them says, to be more exact, it would be a symptom of disintegration, of something gradually wearing thin, talking about this dream. And then the other character says, what is it that is gradually wearing thin? And the other character says, well, if I had to put a name to it, the sleep of whoever is dreaming us. So literally says in here, the sleep of whoever is dreaming us, as in like, we are literally in a dream right now, like none of this is real. And so it was just very much like dream-like, didn't feel real, nothing about it feels real. Definitely had the quality of a dream where like literally nothing makes sense and there's like random crap happening and you don't know why and there's no real explanation for it, and the characters don't act like people. Like, they act like dream people, they don't act like real people, and that's really the best way I can describe it. So my rating for this book, I think I was going to say 2.5 stars for this one as well, because I can understand that it's well written and there are some deep philosophical themes in here that I don't understand, but for me, I didn't get a whole lot out of it, didn't enjoy it a ton, wasn't my favorite read ever, so I think I'm gonna have to give it a 2.5 star rating. That's usually the rating that I give to a book if I didn't really enjoy it, but I can recognize some merits to it. So that's that. Okay, final book that I'm going to talk about, and you can tell probably by the smile on my face, it's a Cassandra Clare book. I read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare this month. I actually just finished it today. Today's the last day of September, so I wanted to finish it before the end of the month so I could include it in this wrap up. Chain of Gold was a 5-star. I don't think anybody should be surprised. If you've watched any of my past videos, you should know that I'm obsessed with Cassandra Clare. Like, sorry to anyone that doesn't like her, but she can do no wrong in my eyes, especially because her books have literally only gotten better. Like, I feel like each one improves upon itself, and this book was probably my favorite one that I've read so far of hers. Like, I genuinely feel like each one that I read I like more than the last, because she just has this way of improving her writing and her character building and her everything with each book. And this is why I loved The Dark Artifices so much, because that was like, she had just taken everything to the next level with The Dark Artifices. And then when I read Chain of Gold, I genuinely feel like, yeah, like she's taking it up a notch again. And so if you don't know, this is the first book in the Last Hour series, which is the most recent series that is in the Shadowhunter universe, by Cassandra Clare. And it is a sequel series to the Infernal Devices series, which is a prequel series to the Mortal Instruments series, so it's a lot. But yeah, the Infernal Devices I really, really enjoyed and loved. I read them earlier this year. I definitely like this book better. Like, no contest. Like, her writing has just improved. Like, in the Infernal Devices, her writing was good, but you definitely could tell that she didn't know how to write in an old time period as well. And in this book, seamless. Like, she did an incredible job with the time period. Her writing style, I literally could have been reading a book from that time period, and the conversations, the banter between the characters, the way that she uses like old-timey British slang in the dialogue in like this effortless, seamless way, I loved it. I was obsessed. And you know, it's a Cassandra Clare book, so we have to have our dramatic romance love triangles, we have to have our steamy makeout scenes, we have to have our dramatic big demon related conflict, and we have to have our adorable friendship dynamics, especially parabatai dynamics. Gotta love them. So basically, I just love everything about this book. Oh, and we have to have our super lovable characters. So there definitely are lovable characters in this book. There's romance. It's everything. It's everything that you want and everything that you need. So need I say more? Read Chain of Gold. I'm really sad because Chain of Iron is next, and it's the last book. It's the last one. So after that, I won't have any more Shadowhunter books to read, and I'm really sad about it. I'm just gonna have to wait till next November when the next book comes out, which is really sad. But that was my wrap up for September. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you feel like it. Also, if you want to support me in the best possible way, you can purchase my book, Light My Sky, which I have right here. It is linked in the description below, so if you want to support me, if you want to read a romance, historical, fun little book, then click that link, and I'll see you guys in my next video.